All right.
Yeah.
I got one last tab for you before we close down this segment and get to Toke's favorite. But yeah, we've touched on this
Man,
before.
look at that glove, man.
But we've talked about it a little bit before. But how MLS could fall to spring schedule could actually work in cold markets. There was a range of reactions to the Athletics report last week that MLS is considering switching to its calendar to a fall to spring schedule as soon as the conclusion of the 2026 World Cup. Perhaps unsurprisingly, though, the most negative came from the league's northernmost markets, who, understandably, aren't entirely sure how MLS could play a schedule similar to Europe's top leagues and not sacrifice the fan experience because of those harsh weather conditions. The winter and the cold winters of New England and Chicago and the north,
Toronto and Minnesota.
Oh, geez, Vancouver. Part of the reason is probably that the fall to spring leagues MLS fans are most familiar with are probably the English Premier League and Spain's La Liga, which both take minimal pauses in the winter months because of those national climates. But an MLS version would probably look considerably different from the Premiership or La Liga, obviously. And there are many ways that the league could figure this out. So how about something like a split season? The Athletics reporting suggested a potentially winter break of more than a month, beginning in the middle of December when the MLS Cup final is typically played, and concluding at the end of January when training camps are typically beginning. This would be similar to how German Bundesliga manages their fall to spring campaign. But
This is stupid. There are years it snows from October to April in Chicago.
It's true. But elsewhere in Europe, there are leagues that take even more severe winter respites, which make the schedule look more like two split seasons, even if competition begins in late summer and ends in late spring. And there aren't any logistical reasons MLS couldn't follow a similar itinerary. Take, for example, the schedule of 2023-2024 Danish League Superliga champions FC Midtjylland. They began their league campaign 3 weekends earlier than the Premier League, July 21st, and ended it 1 weekend later, May 26th, despite only playing 32 league games against the EPL's 38-match schedule. The break between matches in the middle of the season was actually longer than the break between seasons, with the former running more than 2 months and the latter a bit less than 2 months.
That's stupid.
That seems a little stupid. To avoid too
I
many
do love
cold
their
weather,
free healthcare, but I don't like that.
To avoid too many cold weather matches, MLS could play a similar schedule and still break for all summer international tournaments and other international breaks throughout the year. It would just mean that league matches in late July and early August, which probably don't envision when they hear fall to spring.
Dog, there is so much to compete with in the winter months in American sport. Like, the fact that we get to go up against baseball is phenomenal. We haven't seized on it. I don't think it's going to work, man. I think it's like we all love it because we want transfers to work out. But it doesn't matter because the stadiums will be half full and teams will contract.
Here's the other problem is we'll get into this, but it seems like they're breaking down they want to make this more a statistical issue, like, oh, it only is this cold typically. But here's the thing. The typical day is not necessarily what it is all the time, especially in polar vortex Chicago sometimes, right? So most MLS markets are more hospitable to playing through some of the winter than Denmark, right? Of MLS 30 clubs next season, only 16 actually play in environments where the average low temperatures are freezing or below in January. That includes Nashville and DC.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a lot of teams. That's a whole league.
That's half the league.
Whole German. That's a Bundesliga too.
Half the league plus one. That number decreases, though, as you go to February and December. As you go to February and December, and further as you extend out to March and November. In other words, there's enough geographic diversity that MLS could create a schedule that features only a 6-week break, but lets colder cities have a more extended gap between home matches during the coldest months. That sounds like more away matches. So let's imagine MLS swaps to a fall to spring schedule in 2026, takes a 6-week break. The last matches before the break might be played on the weekend of December 26th, Christmas, day after Christmas, with the league returning to play on the weekend of February 13th. But let's add to that schedule, a schedule that avoids scheduling in any of the 10 coldest markets at home in those final 3 weekends before the break or the final 3 weekends after. None of the 10 markets would play a home match during those 3 weeks, December 5th and March 5th, concentrating their home matches towards the beginning and the ends of the season in warmer temperatures. That is one potential way to do it.
I hate it. The home field advantage is so important in a country as large as America that, like, this is so stupid. You front load a team with home matches and front load another team with away matches, and their season is done before it started. It's like the stupid a circus trip the Bulls always make.
Okay, so they go further that changing the time of the games during winter games would be beneficial too. Playing nearly the 7:30 p.m.s usually make it way too cold, and playing at earlier times usually yield a higher temperature in these colder weather areas. So like, say, noon games, 2 p.m. games.
I like
right?
that. I like that.
And then the report from The Athletic also indicated that the league is considering playing the League's Cup in warm weather markets during the winter. The League's Cup eats up 5 weekends from the first match to the final. So that would be an easy way to keep teams active for part of the winter without requiring fans to actually brave frigid temperatures. This idea has been suggested before, and it feels like it will be by far the easiest way to keep the League's Cup alive if MLS flips to its schedule to a more European model.
Honestly, getting rid of Leagues Cup is almost as high on my list of priorities as seizing the means of manufacturing. Like, I want nothing more than Leagues Cup to just die a death that goes away forever. I don't know. Am I alone on that?
I think it's a waste. League Cup,
when they
whatever it
present it like
is.
this kind of makes sense. Like, this actually, it would present a usefulness to keep all the teams active when it is during this. There's utility here to this Winter Leagues Cup idea, actually, if they were doing it.
I don't know. Personally, I'll say this. As a man who isn't usually afraid of change, I hate it. I hate everything about it. I hate it. I don't think it's going to work well in this country. And selfishly, I'm not super psyched about it either. I like the setup we got now for my game viewing pleasure.
Well, and you said going against the other sports could be problematic.
Well, what do you actually think? What do you want?
I like this Winter League Cup idea. I like the idea of somehow getting more in line with the European schedule so you can get that transfer window. If you can't fix the transfer window in the current season setup that you have now, if there's no way for you to change it, substantially fix it, but still keep it, from significantly infecting the playoffs. Because think about this. Like, if the transfer window is open towards the last third half of the season, that's almost like as if the trade window in the NFL was open in the last third half of the season. But you want most of the teams to have made up their minds after the first 10 or 11 weeks, basically, to go all in at that point, because you're going to get less tanking. Not that there's advantages to necessarily tanking in MLS, like there is in football.
There is no advantage.
Yeah.
There's none.
But maybe there's a financial advantage. Tax write-off.
I don't know. DPG, what do you think?
I mean, let's be honest. Like, the winter market, for European clubs in the European season, I mean, yes, you might be able to find some deals because there's some teams that might just want to get rid of players just because they don't fit the current scheme. But it sucks when you have to hear GM say, well, we got to wait for the summer transfer window because we haven't got all our pieces yet.
Yeah, well, they're bad at their jobs. You've
well,
heard
they're
bad
also
people.
limited because we've heard in the past that these players still have other options, and they're like, I'm not yet ready yet to commit to that because maybe got an offer maybe got a $2 million extra dollar offer coming in from Al Hilal or Feyenoord or somewhere or
well,
one of the Italian league teams.
You're gonna have to compete no matter what.
Yep.
I don't know, man.
Either you buy the player or you're gonna have to wait for him to get to free agency, and then once his contract's up, he's up. Anybody could throw money at him, and
you guys were talking about it before about taking off the stupid rules of the league. Well, guess what? The schedule is a stupid rule that's already inherently baked into the league, just like the DP rule. The MLS, if it wants to get to the times, it has to make 2 significant changes. It's got to fix the schedule and it's got to remove the DPs. Take the governor, move your schedule into more in line with the rest of the world. Open up your transfer market, make more money. and drive more interest. Because guess what? All the leagues, when all of a sudden they're seeing that their guys ending up in MLS, they get interested in that MLS team. It happens all the time.
Yep.
And that'll happen more and more often when you get more in line with.
I mean, I'm just
happy
they got rid of that whole allocation order crap that they had a couple of years ago.
Oh God, I didn't know they did that. That's awesome.
Yeah, for U.S. men's national team.
Yeah,
you remember that?
I do. I'll say this, man. The DP rule is a self-inflicted wound. I think the schedule is literally just the reality of playing. Like, if you want, like, the only way for Major League Soccer to function not on the schedule is to be in another country.
Disagree. Because they're thinking it's possible. they think it's possible, and the way that they lay it out, it is possible. It's just not comfortable.
Yeah,
I mean,
which
let me ask you this:
you can't, like, when something isn't the most popular thing, like when football it being the most popular thing on this planet in this country, I should say, people will do anything to get there. There's not enough ride or die for the Chicago Fire to survive that much discomfort. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, the harsh winter months.
You gotta make it easy to be loved, and that's not gonna make it easy to be loved.
Speaking of being easy to love, I hope you guys give that like button a little love, and we're gonna be right back. We're gonna talk a little bit about Americans abroad, a little bit about MLS playoffs, and maybe a touch about Chicago Fire rumor that I heard. And we'll be catching you guys on the flip side. Be right back on Enemies of the Fire.